Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Ben Reeves.
I'm back, baby.
Hey, yeah. Then we got Matt Miller.
Hello.
Great old Matt Miller. And then Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
Has this combo ever been on the podcast before?
Have we ever been in the same room before?
No.
All of us at the same time? Who is this guy?
It's like a deck of cards.
That's the
you
other.
shuffle us.
Whenever you hear us talk about the other Ben,
That's him.
that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
You're talking about that guy. Yeah.
It's like you're the kings of like the four quadrants of the office, and now we've assembled you and brought you together.
That's
Like
right.
I think that happened in one of the
We
Lord of
can
the
now
Rings.
pass rulings.
That's right.
I will
We're gonna-
say I was here long before Hanson, but everybody calls Hanson Ben and me Reeves. and
That's
this
not
feels
true. It's the other way
unjust.
around.
I think I call you Ben more than I call him.
That's very true.
I disagree.
But we're going to cast some rulings now, and Miller's right, on some hot games in this episode,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We're
yeah.
talking about a pair of Dragon Ball games, so
Okay.
Uh-huh.
jump ahead or listen closely, whatever your preference is. Then we're talking about
We're going
Obsidian's...
balls out.
That's right.
That's right.
Obsidian's Tyranny. Miller has played a lot of this RPG. We're going to talk all about that. If you like Pillars of Eternity, you should tune in. Then Reeves, you're going to be talking about Planet Coaster,
Ooh,
the old sim fanatic at the end of the table.
can't wait.
And then we're going to get some community emails. And at the tail end of this show, it's something a little bit different, something weird. But it's Thanksgiving. This podcast is airing on Thanksgiving. So we took it as an opportunity to pick up people's spirits. And I sit down with Jeff Cork and Jeff Marchiafava, and we give thanks to the highlights of 2016.
Because there's the two
Really?
least thankful people in the office. Is that what you should
Is that really what you do?
Well, it starts out that way. It has some twists and turns along the way. So tune in if you like weird stuff. Also, I want to point out that the next episode of this podcast, we are kicking off the game club for Pokemon Sun and Moon. So if you've been playing the new Pokemon game or you want to run out and buy it real quick and then play alongside us, we would strongly encourage you to.
You got a
And
week.
You got a week. And send feedback, thoughts on the game, what you see as the game's strengths, weaknesses, highlights, lowlights, all that stuff. Send thoughts into podcastinginformer.com, and then we'll talk all about it in the back half of next week's show, alongside talking about some high-profile games, right, Ben Reeves?
That's right.
All right.
Highs and lows.
But for now,
Mostly highs.
Dragon Ball, Kyle.
Speaking of highs,
So I got a lot of messages because people know that we're fans of Dragon Ball. And
Mhm.
Miller, as a lore hound, I want your take on Dragon Ball as well. So chime in whenever you want. I really am interested. But I got a lot of people saying, like, why don't you talk about Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 on the podcast? And it
Yeah,
just
Ben.
didn't really slot in well. What did you think about Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2?
I gave it a score of some kind.
7, I believe.
Seven, maybe 7. It was between 7 and 7.5, I think. It's pretty okay.
Yeah.
I like what they're doing with the Xenoverse games because I think it's like a good direction for a Dragon Ball game because it's like goofy, fun fan service. You get to kind of exist in the Dragon Ball world with your own character. But then like the fighting's just not super engaging. And that's like the core of the game, you know.
But that's like a big action with a lot of RPG elements thrown in there.
Yeah. But like just I really the big thing I liked about this one was the hub world is really goofy and fun and like it's weird to just sort of exist there. I think it can hold up to like 300 people simultaneously. That number could be off. I think that was like the back of the box blurb. I never really got a sense that there were like 300 people in there.
Yeah.
But it's just people like activating all their weird animations and showing off all their weird clothes that they unlocked and
If
stuff
you like
that.
seeing people in the tower in Destiny just doing dumb dances and sitting on wolves' heads, that's the cup of tea for Dragon Ball fans.
It weirdly does have a Destiny kind of structure in a weird way because you have that like hub where you kind of can just goof around, interact with people, upgrade and buy new things and unlock things, and then you sort of grab these missions and go off and do them, and then you just are constantly coming back to that hub world. You know?
Okay, so hub world's cool, but the mission's just kind of boring fighting.
It's just the combat's just not that great. It's very button mashy, and there were like later when it starts getting really tough, I do get into a sense where I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing wrong here. I've been really successful up to this point, and now like I'm kind of doing, you know, the same thing. I've like upgraded all the right stats, but I'm still like getting my ass kicked. It's kind of that thing. Like it
Does
kind
it
of
mirror your life and your career as well?
It's kind of like high school. You kind of coast through life, and then
Yes.
you get to high school, and then everybody just craps on you.
Pray you find Shenron the dragon to grant your wish.
Kyle, how
Exactly.
many at this point? How many Dragon Ball games would you estimate that you have played?
that I have played. Are we counting the Japanese imports that I emulated as a child?
I think
Where
you
I
just
didn't
answered the
understand.
question. So, okay, you were then qualified to answer this for me.
Okay.
So, I'm hypothetically speaking. Hypothetically, we're
All
going to
right.
speak hypothetically for a second here. If you were a person who maybe had a passing interest in anime,
Okay.
perhaps at a younger age, and you never really got into Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Like, it never really did it for you.
How much of an attempt did this person give it?
Every time he or she turned it on,
Right. Okay.
it didn't really grab them because it seemed like it was the same battle happening for multiple episodes, and it felt like a soap opera a little bit.
So he or she doesn't like foreplay and tension in their storytelling. Is that right?
That must be it.
Yeah.
Is he or she single?
Who could say?
There's no way of knowing. This is all hypothetical.
What does a game like the one you're describing offer to a player like that? Anything?
To someone
Because
who,
you use the word fan service, which I think it's great when a game gives, like strong fan service to its community of people who followed the franchise for a long time. But there is also that other side of the coin of like, well, for every bit of fan service there is in the game, there's also like, you're kind of like turning away people who don't know what you're talking about, right? Like, is the game fairly squarely targeted towards people at this point who really know that lore and really know that fiction? Is there anything there for somebody who's just like, yeah, like, I kind of like anime characters.
Punching's okay.
I kind of like, like games where I get to fight dudes. Or is it really not anything there?
It does kind of. It goes through the Dragon Ball story, which like every game does, with twists.
Okay.
So if you're like totally new to Dragon Ball, like you wouldn't get a lot out of that, I guess.
I cannot imagine a world where somebody who doesn't like Dragon Ball would pick up Xenoverse or Xenoverse 2.
Yeah, it's very flashy, and maybe you have an appreciation for Toriyama's art because you can be that person without being a fan of Dragon Ball.
Yep.
Maybe you like Dragon Quest or something like that.
Chrono Trigger.
Or Chrono Trigger. So yeah, but I mean, really, it really is for fans of Dragon Ball, which there are a lot of.
There are a lot.
Yeah.
Which I want to bring up because you talk about recently, they're getting more in the fan service area. I think we've talked about the last two movies on this podcast specifically, which I think are just fantastic, crazy fan service, just so much fun. Very much in the spirit of like the Citadel DLC from Mass Effect, where it's like, hey, we're just gonna put the characters together. It's a jokey good time. Everyone's having fun. You know these guys, you love them. But there is something interesting happening with the games. I think Xenoverse does it, and another game we're going to talk about very soon does it, because they've retold that story so many times. There's only like 6 big baddies that they work their way through again and again and again and again. And lately they've gotten really weird and experimental with Xenoverse. It's like time paradoxes, the whole story's like jumbled up and you have to mix and match it. And it's great when you have a world and a fiction that supports magical wishes, because what they do with Dragon Ball Fusions, which is a new 3DS game out this week, is it's like, hey, we're going to wish for the most epic tournament ever made. All right, this magical dragon, here you go, make a new world. And then it's able to just pull in characters from every timeline, every world. It's nonsense, but it's a fun Dragon Ball potpourri in there.
Yeah, we're kind of transitioning now to talk about Fusions,
Please.
which you and I have been playing a little bit.
Yeah.
And it was weirdly refreshing to play through that opening hour as just like saccharine and just kind of like, oh, gee golly, let's go have a tournament. Like, it was refreshing to have a story that's not like, all right, let's go through the Saiyan saga now.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, let's go through the Frieza saga. It's just like totally new.
But they still kind of get that. They have their cake while eating it too, as they say, or whatever the hell that is. Because they're pulling in everybody from the Dragon Ball world, they can pull in those early boss fights. And we'll just call them boss fights. So it's like, hey, here's Raditz and Nappa. They're goofy, but now this time they can fuse together and make Nats. Is that his name?
Yeah.
And he just looks hideous, and you wipe the floor with him immediately.
Yeah.
But you've played a couple hours. I've played a couple hours. I've not talked to you at all about this. What do you think about Dragon Ball Fusions?
I'm enjoying it.
Me too.
It's,
That's a good tone and cadence.
Yeah, because it's not. I'm not like waving my arms and be like, "Oh, this is the Dragon Ball game I've been waiting for." But like, the combat sort of straddles this weird line between like a strategy game and a turn-based RPG.
Yeah.
Where you have this like big ring, and you kind of select your attack and who you want to attack, and then you can knock them either out of the ring or you can knock them into your friends or into enemies to like take extra damage. So there's this weird level of like strategy. And it's nice to get away because I've reviewed like the last 2 Xenoverse games and Battle of Z, which were just like straight up pretty much fighting games.
Yeah.
So it's nice to play a Dragon Ball game that's like an RPG.
But there's still like attacks where you are physically flying around and punching and shooting your ki blast and stuff.
Yes.
What struck me, it's like, I don't think this game has been promoted much by Namco at all. It seems really solid, but The interesting thing is going into it, it's like, oh, it's a strategy RPG. Okay, I didn't really expect this. And the weird analogy that I thought of is it reminds me of South Park: The Fractured But Whole.
Really?
Okay.
Was there any part of you that thought of that?
I've totally been thinking of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And along with our concerns about South Park is like, I wonder if those like battles are going to take too long. I feel like in Fusions, those arenas take a while to work your way through.
Because it'll be like 4 versus 5 battles, and it like I guess I don't have to explain it. It's a turn-based RPG. Like every single character has to take their turn, and every single character you have to be somewhat methodical about. You can't just be like, all right, just do the regular attack. Okay, this guy should heal everybody else.
Yeah.
Like everyone involves a little bit of movement and a little bit of aiming. And I actually even thought of another like weird one, Star Fox Armada for the DS, which is kind of like I just happened to have played it recently, so that makes
a game no one played and an unreleased game is the two main references for Dragon Ball
So
Fusions.
is Goku using his farts to knock people out? Is it similar to?
Well, maybe I haven't.
I
don't
think
know.
you've
I just unlocked.
knocked in there to what their comparison is.
Yeah.
I did just add Child Goku to my team, who Bulma was nice to explain that it's not. He didn't actually turn into a child. He's actually from another dimension.
And if you're a
he's
Dragon
come
Ball
to join
fan,
my
it's fun to have Goten fight alongside Kid Goku because they
Yeah.
are basically identical in
So
every
this
way.
is like
Yeah.
there's multiple timelines and all this stuff.
It's not even that complicated.
Yeah.
It's literally just we wish for the greatest tournament of all time, and now we're just going to keep throwing these characters at you. They'll have some jokes about what they're doing here, but don't worry about it. But then the
Yeah.
actual world is you're like flying around this kind of Skyward Sword-esque floating islands.
Yeah.
But it technically is super impressive for 3DS to the point that the 3D doesn't work, which
Yep.
is a growing trend in 3DS games.
No stereoscopic 3D.
It's
Yeah.
bizarre, but like the actual world, I think is pretty cool. You just fly around, visit the different islands, go on different quests, do battles. It seems like the rhythm is you get into these strategic battles to build up different kinds of energy. Then you use that energy to unlock new areas in this world, and then transition to the next bubble of floating islands, then the next bubble.
Right.
So it could get repetitive at a certain point. But I was playing it and it feels like this is going to be one of those underrated, maybe even you can call it a cult classic for like Dragon Ball fans.
Yeah.
Like that game was cool. That game was different. Check that one out.
Yeah, like when Xenoverse 3 comes out, I'd be like, oh man, no one played Fusions. I should have played Fusions. It's worth mentioning that like the game was supposed to come out in a month. And then like last week, they announced like, oh, by the way, this is coming out next week. Which in a weird way, like when they made that announcement, it's like, oh man, they're trying to bury this thing. Like this must be garbage and they really want to push it away. But it's pretty interesting. I can see it getting repetitive.
Yeah.
For sure. But like I want to see more of the fusions, which is for you guys who aren't big Dragon Ball fans, like characters can combine to create like one single new character. And the reason it's called fusions is because apparently you can like have characters who've never fused before, like Nappa and Raditz, fuse together in the middle of a fight and make like a brand new weird looking character.
It's a really wacky premise that's always been in Dragon Ball lore. Well, not always. It's later in the Majin Buu saga. It's not important. But like only like, okay, as far as overall fusions in the main line, there's like 3 or 4. It's like super rare. And so the idea like with this game, we're going all in. It's basically the Skylanders swap force of Dragon Ball
No,
games.
yeah,
where it's like,
do it.
just
I
mix and
feel
match
like there's a
anybody.
new Dragon Ball game every 6 months. Like I'm always surprised and
Yeah.
impressed that
There's a lot
that
of
many
them.
fans
Yeah.
out there. And like, are they still doing stuff with Dragon Ball Z outside?
Well, it's
of
no longer
the
Z.
games?
It's been revitalized actually in the last
It's just
year
Dragon Ball?
because they came out with 2 films, and that was like Toriyama's return. Like it had been like what, a decade or something,
I think
where
more
there
than
was
that, yeah.
there was like no new Dragon Ball stuff, and then 2 new films came out, which are both excellent. Like they're both really good and really actually totally drew me back into Dragon Ball Z to the point where I rewatched the whole show.
So you're like Dragon Balls deep now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's right. Hashtag probably for that, I imagine. But then now there's Dragon Ball Super, like which is a new TV. There's a new series out too, which picks up after Z. So, which I haven't started watching yet.
I haven't either. But this is a new team. It's from the developers that made We Fit You and a bunch of
I
One
didn't know
Piece
that.
games. And it kind of has that, I don't know, it's nice because you compare it to Dimps, who's making the Xenoverse games, and they've made dozens of Dragon Ball games. And so it's nice to see a brand new developer's take on the Dragon Ball license. And like, it's solid.
It's interesting. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep playing it for sure.
Okay, enough Dragon Ball talk. Clearly the best show ever made. But, Miller, I want to talk about Obsidian and Tyranny.
Yeah.
Because this is a throwback RPG, is that right?
I don't know. I don't think it's a throwback. I think that it very specifically is molded as the previous game from the studio, Pillars of Eternity, was. It's molded on a style of game that kind of wasn't being made for a while. For a good 10 plus years. there wasn't really anybody, or not very many people, making the sort of isometric classic CRPG stuff that was like Baldur's Gate, like Icewind Dale, like Planescape Torment. These were games that in the mid and late 90s were they were sort of the birthplace, I think, for where you eventually went that got you to Dragon Age and Mass Effect and games like that.
It's interesting you say not a throwback, it's just that they weren't being made. I mean, would you compare it to just like if the industry didn't make 2D platformers for 10 years and then suddenly started pumping them out? It's like you can still have modern 2D platformers, but there's still just something inherently classic.
Yes, I think that's a good comparison, actually, because I don't want to create the impression that somehow these games feel old-fashioned. Either Pillars of Eternity or Tyranny or one of several other games that are currently in production. The one I'm most excited about, I think, being the new Torment game, Tides of Numenera game, which is also in that sort of style. I mean, they still have this isometric view, and there are compromises, I guess you could say, made in terms of the technical detail that is on display. It's not on the same level of production values as something like Dragon Age or Mass Effect, but it does a lot of things that are really sophisticated and are really keeping up with the design challenges of modern day gaming.
Does it feel like a sister product of Pillars of Eternity? I mean, is it as direct as if you like Pillars of Eternity, you're going to love this?
I don't think so. For one very important reason that has to do with the nature of the story content in the game. But in terms of the actual mechanics of how you navigate your characters around and leveling up and that kind of stuff, even if the systems are a little different, like the actual gameplay systems, the mechanics are the same, right?
Okay.
Like you're gonna mouse over your characters and click on a certain place on the screen to make your party move over there, and it's a tactical combat focused RPG with lots and lots of conversation. Like Pillars of Eternity, there's a lot of text to read. It's almost like a mix of a like kind of a novel and a game, right? In that you're often reading these long blocks of expository text that both communicate dialogue and tell you things about like the characters' facial expressions or actions or things like that. Because
facial expressions,
yeah, for sure, because they're trying to be really descriptive, for the things that their art style doesn't allow for, right? So you might get a really detailed description of a way that one character is approaching another character slowly and then stabbing them in the back, and then that character falls to the ground and dies slowly, right? Like you might have this whole lengthy paragraph that's all that, and on screen it's just literally like one character kind of walks up to be in the vicinity of the other character and you see him raise his weapon and swing it. Yeah, exactly. Like that is the way that it's a sort of a throwback, right? Because it doesn't have that level of detail on the animation and the first person views of the faces, of seeing the voices match up with lip syncing movements and that kind of stuff. There's none of that going on here.
Yeah. So if you love Divinity, Original Sin, you love Pillars of Eternity, you love even like Wasteland 2, stuff like that. I mean, how does Tyranny compare to those?
So I think the big idea with Tyranny is that it is a one of these big epic RPGs with a really cool original fantasy world to explore and learn about, with a magic system that that slowly unfolds to you as you go through the game, and lots of interesting characters. But instead of the traditional setup where, there's a mix of heroic characters and villainous characters, everybody here is evil. Everybody's evil.
Now, is it a shade of gray evil? Oh.
Everybody's evil.
So everybody's
including,
like Joe Juba kind of level evil.
Everybody is evil, including you. The world has been taken over by this overlord that conquered the land 300 years ago and has been sort of slowly extending its military might across this massive continent. And as this game begins, there's one tiny bastion of freedom still left, and your job is to be the enforcer who quashes that final rebellion.
That's good.
And takes over the land in the name of the Overlord.
How do you have that structure and that fun premise with still giving choice to the player?
That's a very interesting question, and one that I think that the game sort of struggles with a little bit. There is a lot of choice in this game, to be clear. There's a lot of very interesting things about which one of the Overlord's generals you side with, and who you take as an ally, who you target as an enemy. There's interesting choices about how you choose to pacify or destroy the populace in order to enact the Overlord's will in matters. But I think for me, one of the big challenges of the game, and one of the things once I played it that I really struggled with, is that when your choice is between doing one evil thing or a different evil thing, it limits how meaningful that choice is, I think. In the same, and by the way, it's not because it's a game about evil. I think I would feel the same way if it was a game about, like, let's do an epic RPG that's set in a heavenly realm where everybody gets along really well and nobody fights. Like, in that story, if your choices was either give this guy a hug or shake his hand, like, I think that there would be a similar problem, right? In this game, it's that you have times where you come across a helpless prisoner and your choice is either to murder them in cold blood in that moment, bash their head in, and have a description just like telling you about how you've just bashed their head in and what that looks like, or you can send them off to be tortured and have their fingers cut off and until they submit to the might of the Overlord.
Now, if people aren't aware of this, Miller is perhaps the sweetest soul in the Game Informer office, so I would imagine you hated that.
I struggled somewhat with some of those decisions. I mean, I think one of the great joys of video games is the opportunity to inhabit a character that's different from yourself, and so I don't have any problem with the idea of a game that offers sort of villainous paths, right? Like, I mean, think about it, like a game like Grand Theft Auto. If you really step back from that, most of the time, the characters you're playing in those games are not good people, right? But there's still
so many stop signs there.
There's something that's really fun and escapist about those opportunities. This game does push the boundary of that a little bit for me, right? Where I didn't get to the end of a play session and, like, in most of the cases, it's not like sort of like fun mustache twirling villainy. It's just like gross, terrible meanness.
What's the worst thing you do?
There are opportunities very early in the game where you make a decision of like, well, I have this incredibly powerful magical spell that is going to wipe out this entire landscape that has been given to me by the Overlord to enact on the people. And the choice isn't, do I enact this horrible spell that will wipe out the countryside? It's, do I give people a few minutes to flee first before I enact it? Because if I do, that might be showing too much mercy, and I'm going to be taken to task later by some of the characters in the story for, letting some of these rebels escape before I just kill them all. So it's stuff like that.
All right.
Do you feel like there's an overall like moral message or anything, or is it just sort of bleakness for the sake of bleakness?
I don't just say this was bad.
I would say that one of the reasons that I still quite like the game, generally speaking, I mean, I gave it a good score in the 8s, and I think it has a really rich world to explore in the setting. I mean, whether you like what you see or not, the setting is sold well. Like the idea of this battered populace that is desperately trying to resist, even though they know they can't win, and the settings that you go through that are just, these landscapes that are torn apart already by the time you arrive by war and by magic and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that Obsidian is celebrating villainy here. Like, there is a message that the game is communicating. I mean, it's a game about corruption and power, and the fact that, and the idea that when those things go unchecked, and that there's no way to sort of like balance it, and there's no voice speaking out in opposition, that you can get to this. This is how bad things can be, sort of. And so, I think that there's certainly value in exploring that concept. But, as a game playing experience, there's times that I wouldn't describe what's on display as fun as much as it is just it is at times compelling, right? That you're forced to make these choices, because anybody who didn't make those choices, anybody who did sort of like when that prisoner is there would just let them go, those people get executed, right? And so that's not even an option for you. The only way that your character has gotten to this place in this storyline is by being sort of a bastard.
Now, Reeves joked about it, made reference to it, but I could have sworn I overheard you guys in the office, and you were talking about this game and how dark it is.
Yeah.
And Joe Juba, the troll that he is, was like, and he was like, "This is the game for me." Oh, wahoo!
I think.
Wajuba.
Is it like that kind of gaming troll? People who like to drown babies in The Sims? Is this their game?
I think Joe actually had some of the same problems with the game that I did.
Oh, okay.
In that regard, he talks a good game, but Joe's actually a very, very sweet guy.
I've seen evidence of that.
He's got a puppy now.
Who has a puppy? Who
Only one leg left on it.
But it's true. Is he eating those?
And I think that when he and I talked about what he had played of the game, he also found that there were elements of it that that absence of some of that choice was at times a little bit frustrating. But I don't want to undersell the game too much. I really think that it's an interesting world that they've set up. I think Obsidian had a clear idea of what they wanted to do here, and they enacted that, right? This is a game about bad people in a bad situation, and there is a great sense of you being able to explore the idea of power and gaining your own power, right? There's literally a power meter of like the power you exert over the world around you.
I'm sure mine would be really high.
I'm sure it would, Ben. And you're sort of like when you interact with people, you're either developing wrath with that person or fear with that person.
Those are like the light and dark side?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Basically.
Okay, so some good systems in there.
There's good systems, but they're all built around that idea of like this is a dark world, right? When you are silent in response to a dialogue thread instead of remain silent as being the thing you click on, it's just glare silently. Which I really liked a lot.
That is really good. You just cannot not glare.
Yeah, you can't be sort of like a quiet, compassionate quiet. You're just gonna glare silently at the people around you.
Sounds like my ex-wife.
Sounds like my prom night.
I will say one of the other things that is quite cool about the game is because you make these choices early on in the game. There's this kind of like conquest thing that happens in the opening minutes of the game where you make these kind of binary choices that then shape the world that you're going to go and adventure through in the coming 30 hours of gameplay. Because of that, and because of all the different things that you do throughout the game, including a sort of final act that has lots of very meaningful choices about who you kill, who you give power to, that kind of stuff. The game is really highly replayable, and I think that they've built it with the idea that you would go in, play through it once, and then be like, oh, I wonder what this would be like if I like sided with the other guy, and I went to this place instead of this place. And that's pretty cool, right? It's probably not as long as some of those classic computer RPGs are, but it's because the replay spectrum is much broader.
So if you listen to this podcast very closely, you might remember that last year we interviewed Obsidian's Fergus Urquhart, one of the best names in the industry, and talked to him about an Xbox One launch game that was canceled. and how hard it was for the team. And you let people go, like the code name was like North Carolina, but that they're repurposing a lot of the ideas from that game into something new that they're going to be announcing very soon. This is that game.
Okay.
And so it's interesting to think of, I wonder what the big budget Microsoft version of this would be. Like you can bum people out with amazing fidelity. You can see those fingernails getting ripped off and whatnot. You know?
Yeah, I'd be interested in like hearing him talk about like why they went so sort of dark with it, or why
It's a
why
fun
so
premise. It at
ruthless?
least
It
gets
is.
attention, you know?
It's a really interesting premise, and I can't think of another game in the genre that does something similar. There's games that let you be evil, certainly, but not where the foundational premise is the world has already been transformed into an evil place, and you just have to deal with the consequences. You have to like function in that world, whether you like it or not.
Well, I don't want to spoil the next game club, but Pokemon Sun and Moon is pretty close to that.
I see. And so I think there's certainly a lot of value in exploring that idea. I always think that just on a broader level, it's important to be able to look at, you know, the suffering in the world, right? And this is a game, like, without exaggeration, I think that does that, right? This is a game about looking at the results of bad choices and evil choices and corrupt choices and where it takes the world. And that's something that is important to do. But does it leave you with a happy feeling when you finish your game session? Probably not.
It's no Peggle. Well,
It's no
good. So,
Peggle.
recommendation, but prepare.
Yeah, know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
It's not like fun and games evil. It's like evil.
Well, let's continue this dark trend before we get to an uplifting roller coaster situation. Kyle, real quick, you've been playing Killing Floor 2, which is out on PS4.
Yeah.
What's that like? How uplifting is that?
That's equally uplifting. Unuplifting?
Downlifting.
Is that a word? Yeah, I've been playing. Cork is writing the review, and I actually played a couple sessions with him. It's a lot like Left 4 Dead.
Murdery Left 4 Dead.
Yeah. I mean, you're fighting waves of, you know, zombies coming at you and stuff. The main difference between it and Left 4 Dead is like Left 4 Dead kind of has these campaign levels that you're working your way through. Killing Floor is more closer to like Call of Duty Zombies or Horde, where you're kind of holding up in one place, and then maybe between waves you're moving to someplace else. But it's like a solid co-op shooter. Like it's fun to play with other people. There's opportunities for strategy, and it's really leans into that sort of like metal like kind of idea, for better or worse. Like, you know, there's like metal music blaring over everything, and everything just has that sheen of like, everyone here has tattoos and spikes, I bet, you know. So
Cool.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. That's
yeah.
Killing Floor 2.
We'll see Cork's full review. But I had a good time playing with Cork.
Right on. It feels like it's nice to have somebody kind of fill that Left 4 Dead gap.
Yeah.
It's certainly Call of Duty tries every year. I think sometimes it's more successful than others. People seem to like Zombies mode this year, I think.
It's almost another way to, I mean, you could almost call like Killing Floor like is zombies mode, but as a full game.
Yeah, right on.
So.
Reeves, you've been playing a little bit of Planet Coaster.
Yeah.
This is a theme park, amusement park simulation building game.
Right.
The theme park
Filled with tons
management
of
building game for right now, right?
coasters for you to rest your drink on.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
that kind of coaster.
That's right. That's what
Wow.
I was going for.
That really changes my understanding of what that game's about.
Well, you know, it was a joke Kyle made this morning. I thought I could work it into the podcast.
I made it
And
during the
just
morning meeting, and no
slay
one
everybody.
caught it.
Yeah.
And Reeves quietly leaned into me to double check that that's what I said, and I said, "Yep," and he said, "Okay."
And then I filed that away.
So the joke's
For my
no
comedy
good. How
bit.
is the game?
The game way better than that joke I made, is what I should say.
How dark
it's
is
kind of
it?
in the spirit of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I know a lot of people were comparing it to like what City Skylines did for The Sims. This kind of does for Roller Coaster Tycoon.
For
Kind of brings
SimCity.
back. Yeah, sorry, what did I say? The Sims. Yeah.
You said The Sims.
Well, you all know what I meant. But yeah, it's a roller coaster theme park simulator. So you're not just doing roller coasters, you're doing all kinds of rides like Ferris wheels and like teacups, and like all the kind of smaller rides are incorporated, and you're managing the park and its resources and its staff. So you need to hire janitors. You need to make sure there's enough like trash bins scattered around so people aren't just throwing their trash all over the floor. You're setting up places for them to buy drinks and all this kind of stuff. So it's a fairly deep management system.
Is it complex? Like if I start this game, I like Operation Genesis. I like city skylines. If I start this game, am I going to be like, oh, this is some PC stuff. I can't handle this.
It's simple enough where you can automate some of the stuff that you're not interested in. Like, I don't know. You can like change the colors of all your rides, or you can go in and sort of modify the length of like how long they go up and down, or like how far out. Does that make sense? Like I don't even know what was one, the spinny rides that
Gravitron
twirl
type
around.
thing?
Yeah, that you can like modify with some of the settings, but you can also just leave the defaults there too if you want.
And now, if we are a fan of Tyranny and we want to go into this game and torture as many visitors
Yeah, have
to
you
this
made your
amusement park as
dystopian
possible.
theme park yet?
No way
You
out.
could, like, people would stop coming. I'm pretty sure you can make roller coasters that are just super loopy and just like make people puke, and like you'll come off your roller coaster and just throw up, and they'll be dissatisfied, obviously. So you want to find the perfect roller coaster that's like thrilling and kind of scary, but not too scary.
And these are
then
meters?
not nauseating. So you kind of have those 3 meters. Yeah. You have
Okay.
like a nauseous meter, you have a fear meter, and you have an excitement meter. And so you want it to be really exciting, but not super nauseous.
Can you ride your own coasters?
You can like do a simulation thing where you can kind of like see it go, and you actually have to
that's
test
cool.
them when you first do them
Yeah.
anyway to make sure they work and aren't killing people, so they don't end up on the killing floor. But yeah,
There's links between all the games we're talking
We're
about.
all
here.
one
that's
today.
right, that's
Yeah.
right. You can also, if you're kind of close to the end of your roller coaster, just set it to like, all right, finish this for me. And there's default actual coasters. If you don't want to like build a full coaster, you can like take some of the pre-made ones and then kind of modify that, or extend the length of the loops, like stuff like that. You can do things if you're not super into like crafting your own roller coaster. There's ways around that.
Okay,
I
but
feel
you
like-
you can lay out your own tracks though. is what
Yes,
you're saying.
yeah. But if you want to go super deep, super
Yeah.
Dragon Balls deep, you can
Of course.
lay out the tracks and get super deep about it. Is what I'm trying to say.
I feel like there is a larger fan base for like those old roller coaster tycoon games than people realize. I feel like that's
Oh,
a game
yeah.
that was really widespread that maybe doesn't get talked about
Yeah.
enough for how popular it was.
I was at the theme park this summer with friends, and we were talking about Roller Coaster Tycoon. And we were like, "Man, I want to play that again." So it was just funny that like a couple months later, here it is,
It's
the
just
game
exact
for me. Yeah.
Does it seem as solid as the little games? Do you think like if you're a fan of Roller Coaster Tycoon back in the day and you want that again, this is the place to go?
I think if you're a fan of Roller Coaster Tycoon, yeah, you'd definitely love this. I would think even if you like something like SimCity or some of those other just sim games, it's a really good sim game because you can manage how much money your park is taking in, and then also you can put ads in the local paper or through the television, try to get more people to come in. So you're kind of constantly managing how many people are coming in and how much fun they're having, and also making sure that they're spending a lot of money, like buying drinks and stuff like that, without like making a disaster of your park. You can hire mascots and have them run around and do super dopey things.
So I can just fill a park with hundreds and hundreds of mascots.
You could, yeah.
That sounds fun.
It's the kind of game where
Mascot Town.
Try and get through this line. It's covered with mascots.
Hey, what did you? I gotta know what you named your theme park.
I think I just left it as a default, actually.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
What would you
I'm gonna
have?
puke just from that.
I should have.
What are you going to
maybe
rename
better.
it after we send you back
Yeah.
upstairs?
Thrill Kill.
No, that's already taken.
Is it?
I think so. Is that an old game? Thrill Kill, right?
Thriller
Everybody?
Coaster.
I think that's Miller's nickname.
Kill
Actually.
Thrill.
Real kill.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Do you have any wacky stories of situations that have been caused? Can you like follow one person along and like torture them, or it's just kind of general managing numbers and nothing really story?
Yeah, you
driven
can't like
comes
poke
out?
people or poke your guests or anything. You can, yeah, I don't know. I had like I don't have any great stories, but I have like I have really boring stories. If you want
Yeah,
those.
yeah, yeah.
I have
please.
you can drop mascots around and kind of watch them just run around and like entertain kids, which is kind of fun. You can manage your lines too. If the line for one ride gets too long, you can be like, all right, I need to put another ride over here so that people aren't stuck in this super dumb long line forever.
That's the best story I've ever heard.
A really good story. by
Are
the
you
way.
a writer?
Oh, by the way, one time one of the lines for my roller coaster was too long. I was like, man, this line is way too long. So I went in and I relayed the track, and so it was loopy.
And now I know
Yeah.
we've heard it twice, but can I hear that story one more time? It's my favorite.
Oh, I hired a mascot and he entertained kids.
So good.
It's really good.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of the year. There's still a couple big blasts of games to come out. What do we got? Final Fantasy 15, which
Yeah.
we've talked about on this podcast for altogether 1,700 hours.
Yeah.
And Last Guardian. Is there anything else anybody's really looking forward to on the horizon?
I don't know if I'm really looking forward to it, but Steep is still coming.
Oh yeah,
That's
Ubisoft's
a big Ubisoft game.
weird steep.
Um,
That's true.
You
forgot that
mentioned
was this year.
Last Guardian, which I'm excited about, but the other one that I keep forgetting is coming out is Dead Rising 4.
Oh,
which I'm like,
yeah.
I'm kind of looking forward to that one actually.
Yeah,
Because I
that's-
missed 3, so it'd be good to kind of dive back into that.
And I'm
series.
excited this coming out on PC. Microsoft.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Fun stuff.
It's
All
probably
right.
going to work really well, right?
I guarantee it. Do you guys want to move on to some fun community emails?
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Do you want to hear the story?
All right, let's move ahead.
Yeah, we better check some emails.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We got some great emails from the community. People sent in lovely emails, thoughts, feedback, concerns, words of wisdom to podcast@GameInformer.com. We're going to comb through the best of the best. And then from that stack of wonderful, wonderful emails, wonderful community members, we're going to choose the golden child, the next savior of our day. And we're done with the email of the week, and then we're going to ship them out something real nice.
Leftover turkey?
Yeah, that's right. Hope you enjoy it. So we got a lot of feedback, thankfully, on the Name That Game Tune music segment that Kyle was on.
Was everyone mad at
That
me
disaster?
about Age of
I'm sorry, that
Empires?
disaster piece?
I had a couple friends in real life that were really mad at you for
Oh.
not getting the Age of Empires theme.
Tell them I'm sorry.
There are some people, a lot of people didn't know as many as I expected. I tried to choose a bunch of broad, well-known songs to kick it off, but maybe I need to go more well-known than I did.
But also, you're sort of palette of what you think is
I know,
well known.
Dude,
I know.
you play weird games, Ben.
I
Let's
agree,
just come out there
But
and
when
talk about that for a
I
second.
chose like Frogger
Yeah.
and I chose like Plants vs. Zombies. Like I was not trying to be all Hanson-y and weird about the whole
There
thing.
were
I
some
wanted to hear,
Chrono
like-
Triggers in there. And,
Yeah.
The Mario song, let's say, and like them vote down to like 1 second and play like 1 second of Mario.
Yeah.
And keep
Right.
it.
We did that
like
with-
that kind of thing. would be
Did you
cool.
listen? We did that with Ocarina. Kind of was like that was about the closest we got.
Right,
to that,
right.
But
as far as
But it's
feedback
fun.
here,
It was fun. I would like to do it again.
Good. Thank you. Eric Garcia says, except for the unreleased category, I think all the categories are pretty good. Like I said,
who's that? What's his name?
upcoming would have been a better name for that category.
Thank
That's
you,
Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Alexander Dunbar says, your categories are generally fine except for the unreleased flub. That was bullcrap. However, you should need to give a decade released as well. It's important that you limit some things. Interesting idea. Nick from Georgia says, I think to make it more fun, you could have them pick from a pool of categories. Maybe choose like different difficulties they have to choose from. A lot of people wrote in saying the point system, giving the other person the point isn't great. Maybe there's something they can do to like earn 2 points, or maybe it takes away from another person. Let's see. Michael Davis says that you should have a 2v2 where somebody has to hum a certain music track. Because they say
All
it's a nice recipe for disaster.
Hmm.
We got some feedback also on an episode that Miller was on, which I thought was very appropriate. Jose C says, a few weeks ago, you guys talked about 2016 being one of the best years for shooters.
That's Jose Canseco?
That's right.
Yeah,
This got me thinking of which
Mention
years.
all the time. It's weird.
It's a big
By the
fan of
way-
yours, Melly.
Just to give you an idea of how funny Jeff Cork is, we're talking about Jose Canseco one time, and Jeff Cork just subtly said, I think I'd say to that situation, no way, Mr. Canseco. And that was his joke, and just went quietly by, but I cannot stop thinking about it. Anyways,
It's funny.
this got me thinking of which years had the best shooters of all time. And 2007 stood out.
It's a joke that keeps paying off.
It really is. I thought you guys might like to vote for which year had the best shooters. So a lot of people actually brought up 2007. You forget how great 2007 was. 2016, Jose here lists Call of Duty, Infinite Warfare, Doom, Battlefield 1, Overwatch, Gears of War 4, Titanfall 2. Great choices. 2007 has Ghost Recon Advanced Warfare 2, BioShock, the first Modern Warfare, Orange Box, I guess, I mean, Team
that's a
Fortress,
good one.
Portal in there alone,
And
Halo
yeah, Half-Life
3
2 episode 2.
yeah, Halo 3, Crackdown.
Yeah.
I feel like you got to give it 2007.
Crackdown's a shooter?
What about
Well,
2004?
I'll tell you.
no.
I'll tell you one of the things that I think is impressive about this year's crop, because I agree. 2007 was. I remember that year, and as we were going through the reviews for those games, it's just been wild how many of those games were like, wow, this is really good. But 2016, I think, surprised me more. Right, like when the Orange Box came out, I was like, well, this is going to be amazing. Right, like this is.
Do you think you knew how amazing it was
I
gonna
don't
be?
know, but
I don't
like,
think people knew what Portal was going to be.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know how that it was going to be as amazing as it was. But
Maybe
you knew
so.
Orange Box was going to be good.
I
sure.
think, but I guess my point is that a lot of those games, there was a certain expectation that we hadn't yet entered that malaise around shooters that I think has existed in the last 3-4 years, or at least what I perceive in the last 3 or 4 years, where there's a lot of people who, as soon as you hear the words Call of Duty or Battlefield or anything like that, you kind of just like tune out. Some people do anyway, where they're just, I'm just not interested in that anymore. I feel like they've gotten caught up in ideas and structures that are the same thing every year. And I think that's generally has been a fair criticism. But this year's crop of shooters aren't that way.
And I feel like with this year's crop, there was always a caveat that you could put on these games before it came out, right? Like Infinite Warfare, the community was so against that. Most downvoted trailer in history and all that stuff. I mean, so many people were worried about like going full space. I don't know. Doom, people weren't in love with multiplayer beta. They did not send out review copies. People were worried about it. Ended up being great. Battlefield 1, some people were skeptical about the setting, about if it's going to feel too clunky, right? Overwatch, it's Blizzard. People knew it was going to be great. Gears of War 4, new studio, new team. Titanfall 2, they never done a campaign. There's always just little caveats there, and all of them ended up being solid.
Yeah, that's a good point.
There we go. Thank you, Jose. Brian Schneider writes in from Saginaw, Michigan. Ben and crew, a couple weeks back, Miller talked about the captions on the Hawks preview, and I was laughing so hard I nearly fell off the elliptical. I remember that preview really well. It was easily my favorite preview simply because of those captions. I miss the irreverence of those magazines gone by. You guys are crazy in a good way as ever, but those jokes and zany puns made me feel like I knew you guys pretty well, even before the website and podcast. Thank you, Brian, for enjoying Miller's memory.
Yeah, non-question.
Bruce Dixon here writes in with an odd one. He says, he offered up a slogan for the magazine and podcast.
Okay.
He says, I think of video game journalism and Game Informer preeminently as documenting the majority of the history of modern imagination. Quote, as a slogan, quote, we take imagination seriously, might appeal to your demographic.
All right.
I will say that speaking to the thing, how he opened his email, that I do think that one of the things I like about the job that we do here is that, unlike a lot of entertainment mediums, there's not an academic force yet that is backing up and offering up the history of video games and chronicling just what's happening, right? And so part of games writing that I really like is that while we're simultaneously being critics and reviewers and talking about what's going on in the games industry, providing, keeping readers and listeners and viewers hopefully as up to date as we can be about what's going on right now, there's also, I think, a responsibility to act in the stead of that absent voice.
Well, what would that voice look like in your mind?
I don't know that it should exist yet, right? Like, it's a young industry, and it's, we've started to see some things that have begun to address it. There's museums now that are chronicling the history of video games, and there's certainly there are now beginning to be academic college programs that just through teaching about design and programming and stuff like that are beginning to talk about games that way. But I think as those continue to grow, one of the things that I take seriously as part of the responsibility of working at a place like Game Informer is chronicling this hobby and this industry that both those of us who work here and those the people who read and listen and watch our stuff, they want to be able to see it for what it is, for this really rich, dynamic discipline that has had a lot of things change about it. Has had a lot of really interesting people who've worked in development and publishing over the years, and anyway,
and games like Killing Floor,
and there's games like Killing Floor.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
does Game Informer have a slogan?
Number one gaming magazine.
Yeah,
what a catchphrase!
There's that number one gaming magazine thing that sits underneath the logo. I
always liked in the Borderlands 2 cover story that was changed to the world's most badass video game magazine. I thought that was a bold move. Actually.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. Let's see. Andrew Grant says, hello, podcast. I first want to say that I love last week's discussion of Mass Effect. Thank you. My question came from Ben talking about how his mom was questioning the motives behind a Harvest Moon game. Surprisingly, my mother had the opposite response. A middle-aged woman who never had any interest in video games would sit and watch me and my siblings play hours and hours of Harvest Moon, telling us to make sure we water our plants or what present we should give to our video game waifu. So my question is, have you ever known someone who had no interest in video games, but one game grabbed them like nothing else? And if so, what game? P.S. Does Dantac have a soul? And if so, what shade of black is it? It's blacker than you could possibly imagine. It's a new color. It's really Lovecraftian. Did you guys ever have that experience where someone who's not really into video games will just be mesmerized by one?
I knew some people who really got into Animal Crossing who really didn't play anything else, like on
Yeah.
GameCube.
And as
Just like
Tim
a little
Schafer
weird one.
explains in the Double Fine documentary, Animal Crossing makes you a better person.
Oh, is that right?
It
Yeah,
trains
okay.
your brain to get a little bit done each day. You know.
Does it really say that? That's interesting.
I knew some people who got into Braid who had never gotten into video games before.
Was that like a gateway into other games, or is it just kind of like that was fascinating, then they were done?
I think that they occasionally would follow other games that I would recommend to them that were in that same vein, but nothing ever captured their attention the way that that game was. I think it was that game in particular was so shockingly poetic and beautiful in the things it was sort of trying to say. And there weren't a lot of other games at that point. And you're talking 2005, I think, if memory serves. Somewhere
after that.
I bet
there's
it's later than that.
2008.
7, 8. Yeah.
Gosh, I
7,
can't
right?
remember now. It was a while ago now, though, right? And there weren't a lot of games that had reached mainstream attention that had that depth of what they were trying to say about the world and about people. And I had friends who were really excited about that.
On the opposite side of the spectrum, I feel like a common one now is a Jackbox Party Pack. It turns out,
Yeah.
like
Sure.
trying to convince people, like especially at family events, like holidays coming up. So it's like, hey, let's play a game. Well, let's bring out, I don't know, Risk or Room a Cube, like
Or the worst, Monopoly.
Right, exactly. I love all those games. But it's just like, we cannot do this every holiday. Like, here's a game which you just have to have a phone and you will have fun. But people
Right.
will still resist it because it's video games, meh. But if you can get over that hurdle, it always pays off.
That's a good reminder. My mom really got into Drawful like last Christmas season. Like that was her favorite thing, and she just like laughed like an idiot. I love you, Mom. But for like some of the like things we drew, and they weren't profane because I was playing with my mom, so I wasn't.
Wait,
gonna
I
draw.
thought that game will actually just erase your drawing if it's not a penis. I thought that's how that works.
Well, you had to disguise it. Yeah.
Oh,
Put
I
a
see.
little hat on it.
I
It's
I
understand.
had a real quick one is in my college dorm. I remember just like swaths of people who were not into games just sitting around and watching me play Shadow of the Colossus. Like I remember a big group of people came like, all right, let's all meet here and then we'll go out. And them just sitting there and being like, let's just watch one more Colossus. Let's just watch one more Colossus.
more.
Probably because
And,
you're
like,
really great company.
okay.
I
That's
had
probably
actually-
the game.
I had a friend who loved watching Portal for the similar kind of like thing. It's like they didn't even want to play, which I was like, "You sure you don't want to play?" Like you would try to hand them a controller, like, no. But they loved watching Portal because it was funny, and Gladys
Yeah.
was like funny to listen to.
Yeah, freshman year in college, it was the big Guitar Hero year. Guitar Hero 1 came out, and I was like a huge harmonics fan, so I bought it like day one, and leaving that dorm room open, and people would be like, what is that? But everyone would get into it.
Yeah.
Like, it was fun.
That's another good one.
Billy from Virginia. Miller, isn't that your home state?
Yeah.
All right, Virginia strong.
Yep.
Isn't that their state motto?
Unless it's changed. When I was there, it was Virginia's for lovers.
Hell yeah. Miller's for lovers. Hello, GI. Whenever I create a character, I always try to make it look exactly like myself. I'm known for getting my characters to eerily represent me, which I, for whatever reason, take pride in. My question is, assuming character stats don't come into play, do you have any quirks when it comes to creating a character? Do you go for a mirror image? Do you just try and create something wacky, random button? Does it depend on the game? What's your create a character strategy, y'all?
Let's make it look like me.
Do you?
It doesn't take much because it's kind of like reddish hair and glasses, and it's like, oh, that kind of looks like me.
If there's like a sad sack option for personality.
Anybody with
Yeah, that's
glasses and red hair.
I think I'm exactly the opposite from you, Kyle. When I go into character creator, the first thing on my mind is the last game that I had a character creator in, and I usually try to make something that is as different as I can from that. I
think
really
you
like the variety of like being able to go into a game and have that opportunity and make a character that's, comes from different places and different gender and different, skin tones and different facial hair, different physique. I really like that. And I like that I can go into these different games and play these completely different people.
Do you think you skew towards like men or Caucasians even? Like
No.
or you're always kind of like across the board?
I think I change it up a lot. That's just personally what I like about it.
I always go for, my default is I am a bit of an underdog, contrarian, some would say on this podcast if you listen. I like to play devil's advocate way too much. But I always go for female minority. That's always my go-to. Like mixed race, darker skinned female is like my sweet spot for create a character
Sure.
in everything.
Who
Like,
you
that's
are
my
deep
shepherd.
down.
That's exactly right. It's my shepherd. It's my everybody. It's just
Actually-
like, let's get some mixed race, dark skin toned female going on in there.
I usually skip through the character creator with like one of the presets because honestly I don't care. Although the one thing I
Really?
usually
No,
You look at it so
hold
much.
on. That blows me away. Really? You don't care about what your character looks like at all?
most of the time. Although the one thing I do tend to add,
Yeah.
which is a beard. I really like giving my characters beards. I don't know if I have beard envy or what, but I really like when my characters have big bushy beards. Other than that, I don't really care what those.
That's
like.
Miller. That's actually exactly what Dan Tack does too. He could
hell?
not be less interested in looking at the character creator. The faster he can click next is like that's his character.
Well, it explains why it looks like Dan Tech and Ben Reeves skip the
With
character
honestly-
creator every morning, if you know what I mean.
Although with something
Sounds like my ex. What did I use?
Yeah,
that
good
correctly?
stuff.
with
Yeah,
something like
that's
Mass
comedy.
Effect, I'll say like with Mass Effect because they were pushing that like default character so much, I wanted to go with that default character because like when I saw the like trailers and stuff, I was like,
marketing, yeah.
"That's him, that's my guy," like that kind of thing.
Oh, I remember you. Yeah, that's right. During every trailer for Mass Effect, you were screaming at your monitor, "That's him! That's the guy!"
I say that during every
It's
trailer.
it's really loud. It's odd when you do that during the Transformers movie
That's right.
trailers.
Optimus Prime, that's
That's
him.
me.
That's my guy.
Toby from Kentucky says, "Hey, Ben and crew, my question is inspired by Pokemon Sun and Moon being released. In your opinion, what is the dumbest Pokemon or any video game character enemy design ever? There are some infamously
Wow.
stupid Pokemon, like a set of friggin' keys and an ice cream cone.
That's mine.
Ever see a character or enemy
That's my guy.
in a game and say, what the heck were they thinking? The worst enemy designs. Like, if you go back, basically anything on the NES is probably the worst. But I think we pointed out in the replay of Crash 2, but towards the end of Crash 2, in like the mechanical factory levels, there is an indescribable object that you have to face off against, where it's kind of like a UFO with squiggly body bursting out and like lava legs. It just makes no coherent sense what they were going for.
Well, I remember that replay actually because you pointed it out, and like you play Crash, and you're like, oh, I just got to beat that thing and move on. But then you pointed it out, and I had this epiphany of like, yeah, wait, what is that thing? I had no idea what it was. There's a lot of dumb Mega Man X enemies. Like there's one in 3 that just like rolls up some grass and throws it at you. It's like, all right.
That's
that
like a
sounds really
joke
good.
last ditch resort.
Yeah, I
When
mean,
you're
it's
cornered.
It's become this
Grass.
thing. It's become this thing that
grass in
everyone
my eyes.
everyone looks at it like, oh yeah, he's throwing weed at you, but it really does just look like it pulls grass about the ground and rolls it up and like throws it at you like a spike, and it's like, all right.
I mean, have you ever been hit by a wad of grass though?
no, I haven't. Does
Yeah.
it hurt?
Especially if you have allergies.
What if you're a robot?
The robot allergies? I think like legs in Legend of Zelda look really dumb.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like water worms or something like that.
Like giant sponges or something.
Yeah.
That's true.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah, the worst. Let's see. This is from Chongor. I'm sorry if I did not get that right. Anyways, he says, I'm a first-time writer, long-time viewer. Sadly, I cannot buy your magazine in Serbia. This is a Serbia.
wow.
I work 12 hours a day, and I often find myself waiting to get home to play games. Now I'm working my way through The Witcher 3 again. The world and characters of that game is just perfect for me to forget my boring-ass life. My question is that do you guys have any go-tos in video games that always save your day and have some in the past carried you through some nasty times? And why? What is your go-to for looking forward to unwinding at the end of the day?
Well, in terms of like just regular, just end of the day, it's usually like whatever game I'm into at the moment. But in terms of like games I like to revisit, there's like a lot of Super Nintendo games that I really like. Yoshi's Island will just always make me happy.
Except for those maze levels.
Yeah. And Mega Man X is another one that I'm just like always happy to play through. And then I always think of like Earthbound because like I really got into Earthbound like during like a high school breakup. And like really got into, and that's like when I played Earthbound. So that was kind of like my get me through that time in my life.
And you name your dog in the game after your girlfriend just to get back at her?
Yeah.
Okay. That's one way to go.
That's pretty good.
I think I play these days. I play a lot of Resogun.
You
Still?
and Resogun.
Are you still playing
It's
that?
bizarre.
I don't play it like
Miller,
daily.
what's wrong with you?
I just
You're broken.
I just mean that I go like you asked what game do I go back to, and
Yeah.
and that's a game I can go back to after not playing for 2 or 3 months at a stretch and still be really entertained and engaged with. And weirdly, after just a little while of play, I can get back up to speed, which is another thing I like about it. That the skill set, because I think that's a really skill focused game, and the skill set translates well and it returns to you really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that one. Rock Band is also in that category. for
Solo
me.
Rock Band?
Yeah. I play more solo Rock Band than really almost any other way, I think. I mean, I've had lots of like Rock Band parties over the years that I enjoy having people over and like playing a lot of that game, but at this point the library of songs that I have is pretty large.
Miller, you'll be my hero.
You know,
if you've ever booted up Rock Band and just sung by yourself solo. Have you done that?
Well, there were times I've reviewed the game and had to do that, so yes.
Okay, but outside of that, you're
think-
cool if you. I'm not trying to make fun of you. Like, I sincerely think that's a bold move that I would never do, but I think it's super
I don't
cool.
know. I'm trying to think. I've definitely.
Don't buy into that. He's gonna pounce on you the second.
He
you do
is.
Take the bait.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't think I've done that. I have had lots of times though that I log in and just like I'm just gonna do drums tonight.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna play some guitar, or even a couple times where I'm just like I just want to play some awesome bass lines, and I just play like 5 bass songs and then I'm done.
Nice, laughing a bass.
Yeah.
I think of like I'm not even like the biggest fan of this genre, but for whatever reason, I really enjoy playing the Woodman stage in Mega Man 2. Whenever I see Mega Man 2,
That's super specific.
I know.
dude.
I feel like I need to work my way through it. It's probably like the music. I started out because I really like the music in that stage,
Yeah.
and now it's just like this reflex thing where it's like this is just what I do. I play through it. I don't know, 8 times a year, just
Oh wow.
on a whim.
I'm surprised you didn't say Sunset Riders because that's the
Well,
one.
that's
That's
actually my
always
comfort
kind of
food.
rough.
Or like now, realistically, it's Overwatch. Like that's still a go-to
Right.
most nights.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I like Picross a lot. I know me
Oh,
and Kyle
yeah,
have
that's a good
nerded out
one.
over that a lot, but I constantly, that's my playing game. Anytime I'm on a plane, I go back and play
It's also
Picross.
your sitting in a hotel room next to Ben Hansen game.
That's right. Trying not to listen to whatever you're saying.
That's right. Kyle from Elk Grove Village says, "Hey, GI crew, imagine you are presented with a one-of-a-kind, single-use machine that will create an alternative universe with any specifications you want. What video game-related specifics would you input for your one and only chance to find out what if? Mine would be to see what would have happened." This is Kyle's choice, right? Out of anything in the world, he chooses.
I will say this is an elaborate
This
setup.
is
Just say
really
like,
complicated.
what do you wish would have happened?
No,
Well,
just like what are
I
you
wanna
curious
hear
about?
this.
Here's okay,
Yeah.
Kyle. This is his
Okay.
from Elk Grove Village. Mine would be to see what would have happened if No Man's Sky would have been quietly released for $30.
Quietly.
I didn't buy the game or care much about it, but I would really be fascinated to find out how much people's perception of a product affects the overall consumer and critical sentiments. Some people would say like, what would happen if Miyamoto was raised in a city instead of the country?
Right.
Like those kinds of like cosmic shifts. But
So
so
are
like,
we-
price difference is an interesting
I
one on
think
No
he's
Man's
like,
Sky.
was he 2 years old? Like that's the first thing that comes to mind is No Man's Sky.
Yeah, Kyle, he has a 2-year-old that he wrote.
Okay.
I was
Yeah, yeah.
I
I'm
was
glad to
trying
know.
to like are we limited here to the world of video games? This is what
Yeah.
we're doing
Yeah.
with the power of
Well-
the cosmos.
Maybe you can change anything, but it has to. All you can observe is how it affects video games.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Dinosaurs still exist.
you can
Yeah,
assassinate
exactly.
Teddy Roosevelt, but you will just then have to see who will be the leader in Civ.
Have
you
you,
know,
have you played the new game from T-Rex?
T-Rex Studios.
Yeah,
oh man,
it's
it's the
good.
best.
I will say to Kyle's point, like I it would be interesting to see because that game, the sort of culture impact if it had been just kind of a small indie game, like how people would have treated it as like this like smaller game that came out and be like, whoa, this is crazy, as opposed to like seeing all that beforehand. It would be interesting.
it
to
is. It
see
is
that.
true. Yeah, I'm curious to see.
But it is in the context of just that sentence.
Sure.
It is funny to be like, oh man, if I could change anything.
just anything
that
in the
price
world.
tag on No Man's Sky.
Just quiet. Also, the quietly released
Yeah,
part
yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah,
to me too.
yeah.
It's just like I don't know.
I think I
how
get
do
what
you
he's
dictate what makes it a quiet release?
I think I get what he's saying though. I mean, I he means without a bunch of fanfare,
yeah,
right? Isn't that what he means? And
Yeah,
yeah, I guess so.
no
Just no
2-year
ads or
build-up or
anything.
anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
and without having been on like an E3 show stage or being on a late night talk show.
Or
sure.
cover
Ahead
of the
of
most
time.
#1 badass gaming magazine.
The
Yeah.
real interesting thing is like, what if they had never shown that video at the Game Awards?
Yeah.
Which I think we kind of know because they've said in interviews that like there was the disaster that happened after that, and they almost lost all the code, and they were
Mhm.
almost going to cancel the project. But then because they'd shown that video at the awards, they decided to keep going.
And
Yeah.
maybe Hello Games actually have this time travel what if scenario, and they're the ones that caused the rain and blocked up that river, and they tried to flood out their own game because they knew that the release of No Man's Sky might not
You
be
think
beneficial
Sean,
for them.
You think Sean Murray has dimension hopping powers? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm going on the record saying Sean Murray is a supernatural being.
Yeah.
Based on the amount of comments he garners on our YouTube channel to this day, there's something supernatural going on there because people are quite pissed.
Who directed Metroid? Do you remember? Do you know his name?
It starts with a Y.
Yeah. I wonder maybe if he hadn't.
Yokoi?
Yeah, I think Yokoi maybe. If he
Gunpei?
hadn't passed away. I don't think it's.
And then we would just have the Metroid games we actually
Maybe.
want.
Yeah.
But he wasn't really like doing a lot of work near the end, right? Was he?
I don't know. I mean, he died in a car accident, right?
Yeah, on
Am
the
I-
side of a road, changing his tire.
Changing
Yeah.
other person's tire.
Like
Oh, is that what
I
it was?
wonder if he's just a creator.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
the
we're
man.
mixing this up with another person.
Maybe.
Are we?
Okay.
He's the creator of the Game Boy, right?
Yeah, I think.
No. It's the same person. The
And
Virtual Boy game
Yeah.
is Metroid Man.
I guess
Okay.
my
Metroid
question is
Man
more
his
like
name.
I would have liked to see what he would be creating
Sure.
today.
That'd be interesting.
I have maybe another weird one. This is like I really wish Brutal Legend had been a huge hit. I would have loved to see a big budget sequel to like Brutal Legend. 'Cause
What
I
if
really
Brutal Legend was released for $30?
quietly.
Quietly released.
It's a weirdly specific one, but that game was so cool and funny, but had a lot of
Yeah.
shortcomings. I would have loved to see like all right, let's spend a lot of money on the sequel and see what we can do with this world.
Well,
that
if
we've
Double Fine
established.
keeps at it, wait
So-
for Double Fine Adventure Season 3.
I think it would be some mix of like the weird, like some of those weird choices you hear about that executives at the like console platform level made in the late 90s that would have resulted in a completely different landscape.
Like the Super Nintendo PlayStation hybrid,
Yes.
like if that would have
Yeah,
stuck
yeah.
around.
like
Yeah.
So
there-
that was exactly mine. Is I
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to know like what would happen if like Sony and Nintendo never like broke up and like
Yeah.
that PlayStation had come out as like the Nintendo PlayStation.
Yeah.
Right.
Like would that have? I mean, would
It
they
would
still
be
be in business
totally
together?
different.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been totally different.
And then like the ripple effects of that, like so many series wouldn't have started or would
Yeah.
be changed.
I mean,
Or-
think about like even little things, seemingly little things, and the way they would affect the much broader console landscape. Something like if Halo had never changed hands, right? Like
if it stayed a
if that had
strategy
not
game.
been on Xbox,
If Apple
would
still
the
owned them?
Xbox really still exist?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think in the early days the only reason you bought an Xbox was for Halo.
Well, last week we learned that Fusion Frenzy was
Very popular
Very
with our
popular.
community.
But generally speaking, I think if that hadn't been there, we'd
No,
have a
that's
very
a-
different landscape.
totally
Yeah.
true point.
What I was thinking of that's kind of fun is if Kill Switch never came out,
Okay.
right? That pioneered the cover-based
Yeah.
system that then Gears of War was heavily inspired by.
Sure.
Like what kind of ripple effect would that have caused? Would we ever even get to cover-based shooters? Who would have pioneered it if not for them? Is it just inevitable that,
Well, wasn't the idea is that Blazinski played paintball, which kind of made him re-examine.
Oh,
it.
is that right?
That's what I'd heard at some point.
Okay.
That's what made him re-examine the idea of playing a shooter.
Because I know that it was Kill Switch and Gears of War, or
And
Kill Switch
Resident
and Resident Evil 4.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
that's the
But
combo.
people forget about Kill Switch, and I think that
Yeah.
you're right. Like I think that is more important to the modern day shooter than people probably realize.
Also, fun fact: Kill Switch, pioneered cover-based shooting. Recently talked to somebody that worked on Kill Switch, and they said like, "Oh yeah, it came from Time Crisis,
Did
like
it
in the
really?
arcades, because they're both Namco games. The ability to like dodge behind stuff. Like we were
Oh.
just taking it from that and moving into the third-person space. That's all that was.
Giving the character movement in that sort of
Right.
Interesting.
So for Gears of War and the entire lineage, we have to go back to Time Crisis. It turns out, if you really want to get to the origins of this, and then probably something even before that.
Huh.
Anyways, Kyle, fun stuff. Chris. Oh, also Kyle, if you do have that ability, you should let us know. It'd be helpful.
That would
Oh,
be
yeah,
super
yes.
helpful.
Send me that email.
I think there's other things we might want to use it on other than video games, but
Nah, I think we're
video
good.
games are pretty
I don't
fun.
know.
Chris from Rest. Oh my God!
Start
Can you,
again.
Can you
You have
read
a
this,
seizure
Kyle?
start again.
Chris from West Roxbury, was that Massachusetts?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was tough. Hey, Game Informers. My sister was on vacation in Italy last week.
Hey, Italy!
And while I was on my PlayStation 4 bumming around the menus, I decided to show my cousin some of my travel photos. Except these were from my various excursions and journeys in game worlds. I often use the share button to snap photos of things I find interesting or beautiful in the games I play. I was inspired by a story that Time Magazine did a few years back when real-life conflict photojournalist Ashley Gilbertson used The Last of Us as photo tools to create some amazing photos. So my question is, do you guys ever use the photo or screen grab feature to document or later remember parts of the game you play?
Never.
It's a good idea.
I use
I
it.
should.
I use it constantly. I take screenshots all the time, but I just try to capture the dumbest things that are like happening in
Yeah.
games. I never use it as like oh, that's really pretty, let me take a screenshot. It's always like, that guy's clipping through the wall, that's great, or something like that, you know.
Yeah, it is. Like every once in a while, I'll see something really cool and want to preserve it, but it's usually just a hassle, and I don't get around to it. I just end up taking notes on this sunset looked cool in this game instead, but taking pictures of it.
I never even take notes. I think taking notes is smart too.
I know I'm so smart. Thank you, Reeves.
I know I've complimented you on that before, but my sister has 2 babies, and she's always taking pictures of them and posting them, and I'm like, I see those photos, I'm like, man, she's like spoiling my parents, because if I had kids, I'd never take photos of them. Like, that's how much. I don't think I would ever take photos. I've never taken photos of any trip I've been on. I've never taken photos of anything.
What?
Well, you've never been
Yeah,
anywhere
Well,
interesting.
that's
I'm
an
actually
exaggeration.
pretty
I've taken
close.
photos, but like I just don't have that drive to take a photo of something. If I'm on
Larry-
a vacation, I'm not like, let's take a photo of this.
Larry David insists, co-creator of Seinfeld, that he has never taken a photograph in his entire life of anything. He's never hit the
She's
shutter
never
button.
pushed that button at all.
I mean, that's at that point you're just being stubborn.
Yeah,
right?
that's Larry David.
I mean,
yeah.
like even if it was just some couple standing at the Grand Canyon that's like, hey, could you take a quick picture? Then you're just being a jerk. You're like, I'm sorry, I don't take pictures.
I believe that's a
have you
Curb Your
seen
Enthusiasm
DSS? Have you
episode.
watched
Yeah,
Curb
no,
Your
I know.
Enthusiasm?
Like,
Nah, I don't think so.
but I don't know. I do find actually in video games something not entirely dissimilar to what Ben is describing. That's the same philosophy applies to sort of like real life photo taking. While I'm not like against taking photos, I do often find that in video games doing that pulls me out of the experience a little bit.
You don't want to think about UI. Yeah.
Well, I just don't want to like in a really cool moment in a video game, or like, oh wow, like look at that amazing skybox that they made in this game. It looks just like a cool photo I could take from, you know, some great vista. I don't really want to stop that experience to, you know, like click this thing, it's going to pop up a menu and I'm going to save it and look at it later. I'd rather for it to kind of like exist in my memory a little bit.
This sounds too healthy emotionally. Just take pictures of everything instead.
All
like a
right,
human being.
I'll change my philosophy.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Kelly from California says, hello, GI crew. How y'all doing? Good, Kelly. Thank you. Kelly writes in a lot.
Thank you, Kelly.
I was wondering if you could explain the importance of being the outlet to, quote, break a story first. What stories are you or GI in general most proud of breaking first, or which ones are most memorable to you? So how important is it to have the breaking news and to be there first?
It's a part of the equation. I mean, I think the place we've done that the most isn't news. It's in like announcing games.
Right.
For a long time, Game Informer focused almost solely on the idea that, you know, when we were going to put something on the cover, it would be something nobody had heard of yet. And that's something I think we've broadened over the years, and we still do that stuff sometimes, and we'll announce games on the cover sometimes, but a lot of times we'll have other reasons that we put something on the cover. Just because we think it's something our readers will really like.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I mean, that kind of story, when you're the first person there, is kind of, there's a certain excitement about that.
Yeah, and I think we've done a better job of like, it's always a weird thing to release the cover story and it's full of info, and then other sites or like Reddit or anybody else, Miller, I know you're very particular to this, you see it a lot with your Destiny stuff, we'll just like pull out a million headlines based on that, and then they'll have the breaking news, and it's like, well, that's tough because we can't just post our entire cover story or break out the news. But it happens on a smaller scale. Even if like you have a big interview with a developer, you can't make the headline, hey, this one news bit takeaway,
Right.
but you want to convey that their news is conveyed in there. But then another site will usually take that pull out, and then they'll get a lot of traffic based on that.
Right.
And then the sourcing at the bottom, anybody who's tried to write news stories and source that correctly knows that it's just a weird echo chamber of sources bouncing all over the place.
It is. It's a hard balancing act to hit, right? Like when you pursue exclusives for any reason, whether it's a preview of a game or announcement of something, or it's a news story that you have specifically tracked down, that your team has tracked down. There's value for the organization that you work for in communicating that, but you're also not trying to be like selfish with it. But it also is frustrating when, you know, you put in a lot of work and a lot of effort to make that exclusive happen, and then, you know, it sometimes literally the entirety of it is stolen instantaneously and doesn't offer any benefit to the organization that you're working for that is that organization that's able to do that work and get that info. Does that make sense?
Right.
Right? Like the only reason we're able to do certain stories is because we have you know, the manpower and the energy and the enthusiasm to pursue those things, and people like those pieces of information. But if it gets stolen, if all of the screens, for instance, get stolen immediately, then we can't keep doing that as well as we might otherwise.
You're saying Bungie would never schedule for this top Redditor just to walk into the halls and post a bunch of stuff?
To be clear, I think it's not like the well-being of Game Informer is the responsibility of anybody but us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a person who's an enthusiast on Reddit or any other community who has an opportunity to share information. I understand that desire, but I do think that there is if you take a step back from it, there is a realization that you have to have that, like, you know, if we like this, if we like a cover story like this, or we like a preview like this, or we like a news story like this, it doesn't just magically happen, right? Like, it happens because somebody puts in a lot of work to make it happen.
Freedom isn't free.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a good reminder. But Josh Rogers from Athens, Georgia.
That's me. That's my guy.
Josh! He says, hey, Ben and all the great GI crew. I've been keeping up with the Game Informer Mass Effect Andromeda coverage, and y'all are doing a great job. Thank you. Speaking of what Mother was talking about. In one of the videos, one of the creators addressed the Mass Effect 3 ending, which originally was not very well received. What have been some of the... By the way, just real quick, I like that moment. It's in the beginning of an interview with Mac Walters, the creative director for Andromeda, and he's like, you know what? Once we finished the Citadel DLC for Mass Effect 3, we wrapped up that trilogy, and despite what people thought of the ending, it was an ending. That's just the way he framed it.
Oh, wow.
A lot of emotion and drama to just summarize with, it was an ending.
Yeah.
Anyways.
It definitely ended. It stopped.
That's right. Josh Rogers says, what have been some of the most disappointing endings in a game for you?
Wait, did he say he liked the Indiana 3 or no? He
Didn't
go into
really address
detail
it. He just said it's
there?
controversial. What have
Yeah.
been some of your most disappointing endings?
Halo 2 is obviously one of the obvious ones
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's kind of cliffhanger. Around the same time, though, it was Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. Was I want to say around the same time, maybe a year earlier, like ended very similarly on a cliffhanger where you're like, you think the game is going to go on for another half.
Yeah.
You're only halfway through the game, and then like it just done. Like, all right, you got to wait for the next game. And you're like, what? Like, and games can take 2-3 years, so it's just super frustrating. So that one for me was very emotional experience.
Yeah. Josh also asked, what do you think developers could do to knock it out of the park with a great ending that their game deserves? What does it take to make a great ending at the same time,
tough.
you know?
Good writing. I mean, I think of Last of Us, which had a
Yeah.
really strong ending.
So you want conclusive endings. That's the
Well,
secret.
Well,
Not
in
always.
some ways, Last of Us wasn't totally conclusive, right? It left
Mhm.
you with a lot of questions and left you with something to think about. And I think that leaving you with something to think about is really important. Like something that's like, it's not all completely wrapped up necessarily, but this journey is over, and I don't know, leaves you with time to reflect on what happened in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think whether I'm thinking about a game or a TV show or a movie, a good ending for me is one that makes everything that came before it better.
Mhm.
That's my
a really great way of looking at
my
it.
rule of thumb.
There's
Is that like if it after, you know, even if it was it was a really good movie, for instance, if the final moments of that film then make everything that came before it feel richer and mean more, that's what you want. Last of Us is a perfect example, right? Like, Last of Us is an amazing game, and if you didn't have the final 2 minutes of that game, like, it still would be an amazing game. But because of those 2 minutes, everything that happens before that takes on a greater depth to it.
That's good.
And the characters
It
mean
sort of,
more.
Yeah, frames those characters in an interesting way and gives you new insight into that character you've already spent like 15 hours with.
Kind of like when I was playing through Abe's Odyssey with the remaster from last year, I think, and spent a lot of time getting through that game. It was kind of a grind at times, not so much fun to replay that game at times. And then my ending was Abe walking into the factory and being incinerated in like a 7-second cutscene. It's like, well, there's the end. Roll the credits. I feel like it added a lot of depth to the world,
like that?
the overall odd world that I
Hey,
hadn't
it's
experienced
over.
before. Yeah.
I think I read an interview with a Pixar writer once who said that like one way to really nail the ending is to kind of like start with the ending, because like that's, you got to recognize that that's the thing that people are going to walk away with. Like, you know, like that is whether, you know, whatever you consider the importance of the ending being, like that's the thing that the audience is going to walk away with.
But-
And what games are they popular for, Kyle? What games?
That sad Cars 3
the
teaser.
Incredibles, Rise of the Underminer.
It was
I think.
sad.
Yeah.
It was weird.
But at the same time, Kyle, the Coen brothers, they don't know their ending when they start writing screenplays, unless it's an adaptation or something, of course, because their logic is, if we don't know where the story is going, it is impossible for the audience to know where the story is going. So who are you going to choose, Pixar or The Incredibles? I'm sorry. What? Pixar or the Coen brothers, who are incredible, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go.
Way
You-
to turn
you-
that
you
around,
did
man.
it.
Thank you. So I think that's a good ending for this podcast.
Yeah.
What do you guys like? What's your favorite email?
I
I like talking about alternate.
Yeah, I like the what if
histories.
one. I was gonna
You like
say.
what
No
ifs?
Man's
So
Sky.
strangely worded question.
person with that amazing name.
He's very good. This is Kyle from Elk Grove Village. All right, just to get our brains moving a little bit, chugging along on this wonderful Thanksgiving before the big meal, we'll give you something nice, Kyle. Thank you so much for writing in. And thank you for everybody that wrote into podcastinginformer.com. We encourage feedback. We encourage new questions, thoughts, news stories that we didn't really talk about. I feel like we don't get enough of those. Those are always fun. Just, hey, talk about this.
Yeah,
What do you think about
reflect
this?
on this.
Reflect on this. I dare you. Do it right now.
Real quick, Hanson.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you that I have a daughter.
Oh, right. That's very important
Yeah,
too.
just
who
wanna
you
make
are
sure
as
I
an
got that
overall
in there.
character. And your daughter is something to be thankful for this year,
Obviously.
Kyle. And there's so many other things to be thankful for. So on this wonderful Thanksgiving Day, let's jump ahead to the next segment and express our thanks on a myriad of topics.
Thank you. I got a good story about Planet Coaster.
Oh yeah. I am now here with Jeff Marchiafava and Jeff Cork,
Hey.
the two wonderful Jeffs, and we're here to give thanks.
Ah.
It's been a rough year for some people. We've lost a lot of good folks along the way, but the gaming industry, I'd argue, has had a pretty good year overall.
Yeah, we'll gloss
Sure.
over that human tragedy because games.
That's
Good
exactly
job.
where I'm going. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way.
Happy
to you,
Thanksgiving
Jeffs.
to you. What kind of cranberry sauce do you like the best? Do you like jelly or the
I
kind with
used
the
to
little
like
bits?
jelly, but now I've matured and I like real cranberries now.
Yeah,
What about you,
I like both.
Jeff?
I don't eat that.
Perfect. What we're doing here is we have a lot of things to be thankful for in 2016.
I just happen to have written some down.
I have written down like 25 things. I don't know about
I
you
wrote down
guys.
25
Oh,
too.
really?
All right, great.
Exactly.
What a coincidence.
We're going to go around the horn and just express thanks to 2016. This is an uplifting segment. This is
Okay.
designed to make people feel good about the year,
Yes.
about the hobby that they like, about their friends, about their family. And there's never going to be anything negative in these 25
I haven't
lists
written
of things to be
anything
thankful for.
about my
Great.
friends or family.
Okay,
just so you know.
fantastic.
Is that what most of yours are about? Your,
Oh, yeah,
your friends?
largely. Yeah.
Your buddy Dave. Wait,
That's Buddy
by
Dave.
proxy.
Jeff Marchiafava, will you please kick things off?
I got to start this?
and let's give some thanks
All right,
to
I might
2016.
blow the whole tone because I don't know what's going on.
I think we're going to have three very different tones.
Yeah, but this was very carefully planned.
Yeah, it's almost as if you gave us all different instructions and we didn't really know what we were doing.
Take it away, Jeff.
All right.
What should we be thankful for?
I'm thankful for. Oh my God, this is perfect. Okay, I'm thankful for Mercy saving my ass every time I run into a gunfight as Genji and just immediately get gunned down
And this is an Overwatch, ladies and
in
gentlemen.
Overwatch.
That's a very vanilla paced thank you, but I like
Yeah.
it. That's true.
It's
Mercy, we should all give thanks to Mercy and the
Absolutely.
people that sacrifice their own level of fun to support others.
That's
Yeah,
right.
To hose off their buddies
That's right.
with plus signs.
Jeff Cork, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for that robot soldier that thinks he's people.
Mm.
That's beautiful, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
It really makes you think about gaming in 2016, doesn't it?
He's basically this year's crossbow.
That's very true. I'd also, on that note, Cork, I'd like to give thanks to 2016 for
Yeah?
giving us so many great robot companions. Like Ethan from Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, BT from Titanfall 2,
Uh-huh.
and Elena from Uncharted 4.
Ayo!
Jeff, take it away.
You went there. I'm thankful for Doom Guy being as disinterested in Doom's storyline as I am.
That's a great one. That's a great
Yeah.
one.
There you go.
I'm thankful they're making a sequel to that old game everyone pretends to like.
Yeah, that is positive, isn't it? I'm thankful that 2016 is the end of the road for those standing on a VR soapbox. Also, fun fact, Old wooden boxes filled with old soap outsold all VR helmets 6-1.
Nice. Yeah, wait, no, I have one for this too. I'm thankful for VR finally being out so I don't have to hear about it anymore.
Heyo!
Yeah.
Guys, right?
Yeah.
Jeff Cork.
Back to what we all want to talk about. I'm thankful that the play of the game is Genji killing 2 guys. Is my feed even on here?
Beautiful. Personally, I'm thankful for the fact that we can now bury the NX codename in the backyard next to the Morpheus, the NGP, Project Natal, and codename Steam.
Nice one. Good. I'm thankful for gamers being so understandable and reasonable when No Man's Sky didn't live up to their expectations.
Good stuff. Great video contribution.
There you go.
Jeff Cork, what are you thankful
that
for?
face when Jeff Marchiafava looks into the camera. I'm thankful for the Season Pass mystery box. What a fun, thrilling surprise that's going to be when you spend $40.
Yeah. You know, personally, I'm thankful that Titanfall 2 puts pure fun above all else in its campaign, above intelligence, above coherence, below JV's review score, and above sales.
Wow.
Okay. You son of a bitch. You know, you really went all jokes, and I didn't know it was going to be like that.
I said punchlines welcome.
Yeah, punchlines welcome. Like, oh yeah, maybe throw in a punchline.
No, but
this is like,
it's not about jokes. It's about being thankful, Jeff.
oh, okay. Let's see. This one goes along with my last one, the No Man's Sky one. Don't worry, I won't look at the camera this time.
Thank you.
I'm thankful I went into No Man's Sky with reasonable expectations and had a reasonable time.
That's good. That's sincere.
It as sincere as I get.
Yeah.
This is also sincere. I'm thankful that the alligators are always hungry in Mafia 3.
That's true. That's a very good point. And personally, in 2016, I'm just really thankful for Amplitude on the PlayStation 4 bringing Insomniacs and Ted Price's sweet voice back with their song Crazy Ride. Front and center in all of our lives once more. Just crank it for a little bit, Wade. Let's sit back.
The song's called Crazy Ride?
Yeah, Crazy Ride, making your games. Thank you, Ted Price, and thank you, Harmonix, for forcing that little ditty back into our lives.
Unbelievable.
What are you thankful for?
I'm thankful that DICE finally remembered it's not Infinity Ward and did its own thing for its campaign.
That's true. That's a great
Little
one.
vignettes. You can tell that mine were actually serious, and then I had to try and fit jokes in. God damn it.
I remain thankful for ragdoll physics, because then when the guy dies, his butt and crotch is on another guy's face.
Yeah.
Or you could drag him into that position.
Yeah, just in general?
Yeah,
In general?
just in general.
Yeah. Personally, I'm thankful that we squeezed a lot of info on the production of the next South Park game with our Fractured Butthole cover story. Really got it all out there. And I'm thankful that based on the amount of clicks that coverage got, we got to enjoy that info all to ourselves. It's really a feast.
Sure. Yeah. I'm thankful that I don't even have to pretend to try and use headsets in multiplayer anymore. Because you don't need them.
You don't play... Well, if you played Overwatch with friends and us, that'd be nice.
No, you just say ignore request. Ben Hansen. There we go.
And then text me back 48 hours later like, oh yeah, by the way, no.
I'm glad that everyone will be able to experience the game at the same time.
Oh, Bethesda burn. Yeah.
Ouch.
Personally, I'm really thankful that Overwatch's art style is a big win for damn delightful artistic expression. And that's sincere. To have something that looks like that be so successful, I feel like it's an FU to not only Bertz's taste, but EA's taste with what they did to Insomniac's Overstrike. There's a whole Insomniac theme and vibe for all these thank yous, but that's a sincere thank you for the art in Overwatch.
Great timing, buddy.
Yeah.
Because I have a sincere one too that I didn't have a punchline for. I'm thankful for Blizzard.
Knocking it out
Just
of the park.
it. Yeah. Still doing like their games as service kind of thing. They're still updating Diablo for some reason.
Like the first
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're owned by one of the most evil corporations in America.
God
according
damn
to
it, you're
Gamers
stepping
Activision.
on my next
Oh,
one,
sorry.
Hanson.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm going to stretch the definition of thankful, but I'm thankful I finally got over the mental block that's preventing me from doing so, and I just yanked off that little flap of plastic around the analog stick
Yeah.
on my PS4 controller like a freaking blister.
Yeah.
They're garbage.
That's good.
The launch PS4 controller is garbage, but I'm thankful that I did that.
That's good. Personally, I'm thankful in 2016 that I got to know Dan Tack on a deep and personal level by going through some dark emotional times with him when we saw Independence Day Resurgence in the theaters together. Seriously, though, what the was that movie? It's the worst.
I don't know.
Jeff Markey, what
I
are you
didn't
thankful
see
for?
it.
Don't.
Don't.
You're the reason I didn't go to that movie.
Good. I
We-
saved everybody.
Yeah, I actually forced my wife to watch the first one in advance of the other one, and then you guys were like, just don't do it. And I said,
It's the
well,
smartest decision you
just
can
wait
make.
for Netflix or whatever.
Absolutely.
Back to the Blizzard one. I was thankful for Blizzard, if you remember, 5 seconds ago. I'm thankful that Activision still doesn't realize it owns Blizzard because they're not fing with any of their games. It's great. Let's keep that going.
All right. On the no. I'm thankful every time I go down a ladder in a video game and a button prompt says slide. I can go down faster.
That's good.
That
Good.
sucks.
Yeah. Personally, I'm thankful that 2016 saw the release of American Truck Simulator instead of Euro Truck Simulator. Finally, stop letting Europe have all the fun and the crippling addiction to uppers.
All right.
Great.
Oh, gross.
Incredible.
Deep Prairie Home Companion cut.
For fans of Prairie Home Companion out there.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff Marchiafava,
For
please.
fan. I'm thankful that 2016 finally shut up the all shooters are the same crowd. Can't say it.
Yeah, that's true.
Lots of different kinds of experiences.
You shoot guys. You shoot robot guys.
Robots who think they're guys.
You shoot
yeah.
guys who are space
You're
guys.
in a robot and you shoot other robots.
The Germans in World War I were pretty robotic.
Sometimes it's a little circle. Sometimes it's a plus sign.
Right.
Sometimes it's a plus sign.
Some
inside a
guns are
circle.
lasers and you don't have to reload. Others
No
you
ammo,
do.
exactly.
That's
Yep.
exactly right.
Beautiful.
Great
Good
point.
point. I'm thankful there's nobody there to check my work every time I adjust the gamma, and I can still totally see the symbol on the left on purpose.
I'm thankful that 2016 saw, as Reiner put it, Microsoft finally making the PC part of its business strategy. I mean, with games like ReCore, Gears of War 4, Forza Horizon 3 coming out on PC as well. It's thereby making the Scorpio on sale now over at newegg.com. Because you can build a PC, folks, and then you don't have to buy the Scorpio, is the joke.
You don't have. I'm thankful for Ben Hansen to you because I definitely
No,
have not written that.
I scratched that one out as soon as it started. I'm thankful that Sony decided to pay Kojima to continue being weird.
Really fork over a large portion of the profits.
And they're
just for the sake of a weirdo.
Okay, what's he doing? He's got a baby fetus. Sure.
Yeah.
Where'd that money go?
Thumbs up.
Bet that $2 billion Minecraft's looking pretty good right now.
I'm thankful that the notifications for party invites stays on my little message indicator thing on the PlayStation 4 thing because I really like to remember that time you invited me to something 3 weeks ago and I just ignored it.
You know, I know we addressed that we're going to be positive here, and I didn't really want to go here in this topic, but at some point we need to acknowledge and express a deep thanks that now that we're at the end of 2016, the long, drawn-out campaign is finally over, and Jeff ended up giving Hitman a 7. Hitman joke, ladies and gentlemen.
Good.
Spoiler alert, that was my best joke.
You went for it. Okay. This one's not really even a joke. I'm thankful Guerrilla Games isn't making another Killzone,
Oh, it's so great, isn't it?
and they're probably thankful for that too.
Oh,
yeah.
Feels
gosh,
like at this point.
absolutely. It's
Over
a
the moon.
breath of fresh air over there for those Dutch folk.
Yeah. I'm thankful we live in a world where Microsoft puts forth as their spokesman for their gaming division, Larry Herb, just a normal middle-aged man. He's not trying to punch it up or act like a big weirdo, overreacting things.
In videos, he might give like a, hey guys, how's it going? And that's like as streamy as he gets.
He's just a guy.
It's legit.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Authentic.
As you put it in our E3 tour video, he's a used car salesman.
Yeah, just a guy.
Yeah. 2016, there's a lot to be thankful for. And I just want to drive home that Elise seems nice.
haven't really touched her yet.
Yeah. I'm thankful for the share function, which lets us instantly point out every bug and hoo-ha Ubisoft puts in its games. There you go.
I'm thankful that Dan Tack is at Game Informer, so we don't have to play all that nerdy crap. Have you seen some of the reviews he writes? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't even read them.
One was just Excel spreadsheet, but it was actually a permadeath Excel spreadsheet. That's not even a joke, you guys. That's off the dome. 2016, I just want to say I'm thankful for that time earlier this year when Jonathan Blow tweeted out a picture of a jar of piss. That was very funny.
It was good.
Yeah.
It's a critique on game development or something. I don't know. I'm thankful for living through the nerd version of Woodstock Summer of Love. That was Pokemon Go.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not even a joke. If you went to any park, it was just overrun by people playing that stupid game.
And if you say you remember playing Pokemon Go, clearly you weren't really out there playing Pokemon Go like Woodstock, right, guys?
I'm thankful that somebody released a full-priced handball game on Xbox One.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What's it called?
Handball something or other. It's like based on the European Handball League.
Oh, if it's not European rules, it's not handball.
It has a very uninspired commentary. What a spectacular goal, he said in a foreign accent. I won't try to duplicate.
Personally, it's a recent one, but I want to say that in 2016, I'm thankful that Firaxis finally patched in controller support for the PC version of XCOM 2. Next up, Firaxis is patching in controller support for Twitter, so anybody in the world can start talking about XCOM 2.
Eggy, that one hurts. That one cuts deep. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, this one's an app one like Hanson has.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that Android has finally caught up to Apple, so that now we get all the crappy pay-to-win bullshit on the same day as iPhones do.
That's good. Next time somebody has a jerk one, they should let me know.
Oh, I got a jerk one.
I just did.
All right, we got a jerk one here. Wade, start the clock. All right, take it away, Jeff Corey.
I'm thankful that our president-elect
Oh, God.
was parodied in Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
Just as an overall concept?
I think it's amazing.
All right, okay. Yeah, apolitical, cool. Personally, I'm thankful that some hipster in Seattle single-handedly made Stardew Valley. The last time some Pacific Northwest hipster took 100 hours from my life, it was me trying to convince myself that Modest Mouse's new album wasn't that bad.
All right, let's keep it going. I'm thankful for games with fully customizable HUDs.
Hey, I'm thankful we didn't do that Hail to the Chimp test chamber that I've been bugging everybody about for months and months, and I have to wait another 4 fucking years.
Beautiful.
I'm thankful that in 2016 we finally learned who Slippy's uncle is in the standalone game Star Fox Guard. Turns out the answer was Grippy Toad, and the world is dumber now.
Beautiful. I'm thankful for whoever made that Switch puppy drawing, because now I can never unsee that.
I'm thankful that Bethesda has nothing to announce regarding Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch.
That's so fun. I'm thankful that in 2016 we finally got to learn all about Mass Effect Andromeda, finally taking the lid off the most expensive puppet show for space boners ever made.
Not wrong, not wrong. I'm thankful that Bungie has finally redeemed itself with the gaming community for Destiny. It seems like they're not about it anymore, and it's just in time to piss everyone off with Destiny 2.
I think I'm thankful for Nintendo's weird-ass commercials overall. Like, they just are trying to replicate how humans behave.
Yeah. Do you have a zinger at the end there?
Idiots.
There we go.
I'm thankful because 2016 finally gave Crash Bandicoot the re-debut the classic character truly deserved, up-resing some old janky PS1 games and a level or two buried in the 9th Skylanders game.
No! Whatever. I'm thankful that God.
I got okay. We can
I
start.
suck.
Okay, let's start the clock for Jeffem here. Let's really get this tone right.
Restart it.
Start the
Wade.
clock, Wade.
There we go. I'm thankful that Naughty Dog refuses to milk its series for every last cent. Right, guys?
Yeah.
And I realize I'm going to have to recant that next year when they announce The Last of Us 2, for real, we're the only ones left, you guys.
Oh Lord. Can we get a Little taste of what Jeffem has done to us, please. Okay, Jeff, start the clock. Let's go.
I'm thankful that Nintendo listened to everybody's super genius idea about making a Super Mario Endless Runner, surprising everyone by making a Super Mario Endless Runner.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm thankful that 2016 saw the reveal of State of Decay 2, a depressing jaunt through an emotionally barren landscape riddled with wasted potential that we can all look forward to in 2020. A little bit like the next presidential election, right, guys?
Too hot. Too hot. I'm thankful for games that have small downloads and infrequent patches. All 3 of them.
Oh boy.
Myself.
I'm thankful you could skip the credits because I don't care about your production, baby.
I'm thankful that at E3 this year, I was able to show Shigeru Miyamoto Disney's cartoon of Mickey Mouse that paid homage to Mario, only to have him question whether what Disney did was actually legal. Also question why I cared more about that video than having a girlfriend or any emotional real-life attachments.
Oh, that's sad.
Take it away, Jeffem!
I'm thankful that Joe's not making me review genital jousting. It's like someone paid H.R. Geiger to make a kids game.
Don't worry, it'll be in your employer review.
Like, pull me.
Oh.
Oh, brother. So on the subject of video game credits,
Yeah.
and sincerely, I'm thankful that like the last Call of Duty, they actually did something nice and different.
Right? Don't spoil it, but yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
Hey, folks.
Yeah?
2016, I'm thankful that Square Enix released an ambitious remake of Dragon Quest VII on the 3DS, and they have the remake of Dragon Quest VIII on the way for 3DS. After that, they plan to have a robust remake of people's interest in Dragon Quest.
No.
Yeah. Hey, let's start the clock again for Jeff. I'm here. Let's really drive this home for this singer. Here we go. Crank that wave. Let's go.
I'm thankful Rockstar announced and is working on Red Dead Redemption 2.
Hey, that's it. On the subject of Rockstar, I'm thankful Rockstar continues to update GTA Online, which someday we keep telling ourselves we're going to have to go check that out.
Right. It seems fun. We
yeah.
should get around to that. Yeah, I agree.
Someone's doing it.
Hey, personally, I'm thankful that Telltale Games is still going strong, releasing a ton of Minecraft episodes and Batman, the Telltale series. The studio is really the little engine that could. And Telltale's game engine is the little engine that I guess technically could, but it probably shouldn't.
Oh, good one. I'm thankful for Battlefield 1's emblem editor,
Yeah.
which I made a lot of custom emblem editors, even if, I don't know.
What?
I don't know where I was going with that one.
No, it's good. Allowing dick pics to
Yeah.
finally get on the internet.
Big dicks, sure.
Sure, great. Great jokes. All right, Jeff Jacork.
Hey, I'm thankful that YouTube sleuth finally figured out that GameStop is our parent company. Now we can all relax a little bit. Holding that one in.
Beautiful.
I'm thankful that 2016 saw the release of Inside from Playdead, making it the best game to come out of Denmark since look at a map and try to find Denmark.
Good one.
Great Dane joke.
Yeah. I'm thankful for the giant barf bag inside.
Cool. Jeff Cork.
I'm thankful I got to kill a zombie this year.
Yeah, 2016, I'm thankful that Pokemon Go brought gamers outside and together, making us a much easier target for people to drive by and shout, "Nerds!" Jeff 'em.
I'm thankful for all the holy crap that worked moments in Dishonored 2. It's not a joke.
That's great.
I didn't know these were going to be so jokey.
No, that's fine. Jeff Cork.
Sons of...
He already kind of touched on it, but this is a semi-genuine one. I'm thankful that kids got inspired to play Pokemon again with Pokemon Go. Even though if adults probably should have cooled it, especially Brian Shea. I'm glad that he's lost interest because he was at my desk every freaking moment. Too much, Brian Shea.
This really isn't a great joke structure. I just wrote down,
Finally.
I am Setsuna, hear me bore.
Good. I'm thankful for the shipment of baby gates that I ordered for Shay to keep him out of the back bullpen.
I'm thankful for the gun I have ordered for Shea to keep him out of the bullpen.
There we go.
That's it, right, folks?
Yeah.
I had one more.
Please.
Oh.
I'm thankful to have 5 days off to play video games.
What are you gonna play?
I don't know. That was a lie, dude. I was just trying to end on a happy note. I don't
Right.
play video games.
Well,
They
I feel
suck.
like this whole segment has been a happy note, and there's a lot to be thankful for in 2016.
I feel like 2017's version of this is going to be a lot better when I
agree.
actually understand what's going on.
Yeah, or the one we do at the tail end when we have to fill that Christmas break with great podcasting material. But hey, thank you, the two Jeffs, for humoring me and giving thanks. And we want to say thank you to all
Oh,
the viewers
let's get
and
sincere.
listeners to the Game Informer Show podcast. Thank you for helping to spread the word, all that fun stuff. And be sure to tune in next Thursday. We'll have another episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.